I want to do a video today about tapping into your intuition, trusting your inner wisdom, maybe you want to call it, in order to make better decisions. And um, and I want to talk about this because this was a bit of a revelation for me, because everything that I had learned up to a certain juncture in my life was that kind of rigor and science and critical thinking was the best way to think. Okay, and it's very easy to kind of go down that route because, well, the conclusions that you have thought about, you can justify. Yeah, you can see a series of breadcrumbs. You can see the whole reasoning process by which you come to a conclusion, and so you kind of think that must be right. It's as if there is an element of our brain that is great at justifying itself, that is great at expressing itself and explaining itself. And so it makes a lot of sense. It's very persuasive. But this, what I appear to have come to have understood, is a relatively small part of your brain. It is the part of your brain that tries to lay claim to all of you, that tries to explain you, to explain your actions, to justify yourself. But it's a bit like a little pea on top of the majority of you. And maybe a few of you, as you're watching this, might be thinking, "Oh, what on earth is he talking about?" And I would have said that before. So you might want to look. There's a great book that I discovered a few years ago, which is called Hair, Brain, Tortoise, Mind, which talks about two different aspects of your mental faculty. Okay. The hare brain being the fast brain, the one that talks, the one that chatters, the one that thinks, the one that also ruminates, the one that can get stuck in the eddies of these ideas and kind of chew upon it. And then the tortoise mind being much less satisfying because it's slower. It doesn't bring thoughts in the same way as the hare mind, and so it's not accessible in the same way. So you can consider the hare brain to be the critical faculty, the conscious thought process, the tortoise mind as the slower, intuitive, feeling brain. And if you've got an engineer's mind, if you've got a very critical, judgmental, and I don't say that in a bad way, but in a way that you consider facts and then you relate to whether or not they're true. If there is a cynical element of you that likes to see evidence that something is correct, well, then this kind of intuition thing is on sandy ground because you can't put hooks into it in the same way that you can your critical, judgmental, scientific, rigorous mind. So what I'm trying to say to you is that, and you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith, that scientific, rigorous part of you is a relatively small part of you, that the conscious brain can only consider apparently somewhere between two and maybe seven, eight, nine things at any one time. Whereas the rest of you, the part of you which, as a simple example, is responsible for all of the autonomic processes that are running in your body at any one time, completely outside of consciousness, is responsible. It's like a mainframe supercomputer. It is responsible for receiving all the feedback of your body, all of the stimuli, all of the information, and then deducing whether that is even worth bringing up to consciousness or whether it can be dealt with totally outside of consciousness. So just from a pure capacity perspective, it would appear as if that is massively larger than what comes up to our conscious minds. And we can see this in brain imaging scan. So it is quite apparent that the vast bulk of the things that we think about don't come up to awareness, that you might wish to consider your conscious mind a little bit like a computer monitor rather than as the decision-making infrastructure of your mind. So it's almost as if there is some self behind the monitor that decides in some instinctive way what is worthwhile bringing up to consciousness, what it's worthwhile maybe getting a second opinion on, and what it's better to just keep away from consciousness, that consciousness will just muddy it, will slow it down, and that the body is perfectly capable of dealing with these other things itself. And this is just going on automatically all the time. Okay. But if you don't consider it, there is no way for you to become aware of that per se. If you're prepared to decide that the thinking you is kind of all of you because that's what you perceive, that's what you're aware of. Well, it's kind of complicated to think of this other part as having anything other than a sort of a bodily function. Or you could even go down the kind of Freudian approach that this body thing has a whole series of urges and instincts and natural processes which kind of get in the way of the intellectualizing, almost as if the intellectualization is the purer form of thought, and the rest is somewhat basic by consideration. But the thing is, if you only focus upon the intellectual, you focus on what you already know. So what you're trying to do with your harebrain, with your thinking capacity, is to use what you already know and try and apply that to conundrums or challenges or goals in nuanced ways. So you're trying to find better ways of thinking about something that you're already thinking. And that's how you end up with procrastination and rumination and so on, because you can reach the point in your brain where there either isn't capacity or there aren't any new ideas, right? Because you're working from the basis of what you already know. So the fantastic thing about going with your intuition or your gut reaction or your inner wisdom or whatever you might want to call it, your subconscious, your quieter voices maybe, is that is filled with things that you don't know you know. And so it is filled with potential. It's filled with alternative perspectives. It's filled with opportunity. It's a little bit like a magician in that its potential is expanded. Then, of course, some of these things come up to our conscious mind, and then the critical faculty evaluates whether they make sense or not. But the point is that the rest of you is, I don't know if it's an exaggeration to say limitless, but it's certainly far, far more open to potential that your thinking mind would not be. And so by saying tap into your intuition in order to make better decisions, or tapping into your inner wisdom if you choose to say that, or tap into your subconscious if you choose to say that. For me, what you're doing is you are relaxing the conscious mind. You're relaxing the critical, scientifically approaching part of your mind, the part of you which is far easier to justify and explain itself, the part of you that does the number crunching, the part of you that would be better used for doing your tax return. You're kind of inviting that part to go a little quieter in order that you can invite the rest of you, however you wish to describe that, to express itself. And that part of you, the tortoise brain, far slower. It's far less able to express itself. It's not part of the prefrontal cortex. It's all of you. It's less adept at justifying itself, but it feels more like you if you give it air to breathe, to express, if you give it freedom so that it feels able to express. And so to make better decisions, the way to do that is to use both. It's not to exclude one, but typically our default state is our thinking mind, it's our critical mind, it's our inner chatter, our inner dialogue. But when you reach a point where that's not working, okay, where you're presented with a challenge or a conundrum or a goal or whatever, and you've thought as much as you can think, and that's not working for whatever reason, you need a more creative edge, you need a more imaginative edge, and thinking more about it isn't going to work. That's the point to take a step back and to trust the rest of you, trust the slower part of your brain to come up with some different ideas, right? Now, the easiest way that I can express this to you from my personal experience is when I go for a run. Because when I go for a run, it's kind of impossible for me to think critically about everything because I'm aware of the function of my body as I'm running. It takes 5 or 10 minutes for you to become at ease with the heightened state of your breathing and that initial excess push of exercising and the strain on your body and so on. And then there is a moment after sort of, I don't know, a few minutes where everything kind of starts to work like a well-oiled machine. It just almost kind of fades into the background. You found your pace, you found your rhythm, you found your breathing, and you just run. You just carry on running. And there is a certain element at that point where your mind is also going clear. And for me, I can come up with the most extraordinarily creative ideas at that moment because suddenly I have no objective. I have no particular reason in mind. I have nothing to think about. My body is working and these ideas come up. Probably more because the critical chattering part of your mind has just kind of gone away. There's so much going on that there's less need. You're focused on just the idea of running and, the weather and the wind in your hair or the other people that are there, or maybe there's a rabbit in the field or whatever it may be. And that's sufficient for your critical mind to enjoy at that time. So you stop ruminating, you stop thinking. So how do you go about doing that? So let's take the example that you have something particular in mind that your conscious thought process doesn't appear to be resolving. And you might feel the urge at that point to try harder, to think more. But you end up kind of frustrated and a little bit drained by it because you just come up with the same things and then you come up with the same reasons why it won't work and so on and so forth. So there is a choice involved in deciding to do something other than that. Okay, that you need a degree of trust in the fact that if you stop thinking about it, if you hand it over to the rest of you, something might come up. You don't need to know too much about that, but you need to be prepared to accept that something might come up, that is a ceremony that might permit the rest of you to feel safe enough to express itself. And so there's 1,001 ways that you can do that, but they all require a decision to allow that to occur. So I do a lot of things in hypnosis, right? Now you can place yourself in self-hypnosis, or you can go to a hypnotist in order to understand how that ceremony works. But what you're doing is quietening the chattering part of your mind in order for the rest of you to breathe. If you're sufficiently open, in actual fact, simply going to sleep and dreaming and being aware of your dreams can be sufficient to bring up this creative element of yourself. Daydreaming can do it. using your imagination, blue sky thinking. Playing can do it. You just stop having an objective to everything and instead play without any purpose in mind other than having a bit of a laugh. And ideas start to come up because the part of you which is saying, well, that's not me, that won't work, all that kind of stuff, isn't in the room. It's just having a laugh at that moment. And so it's permitting the rest of you to express itself. Um, Meditation can do it as well. One of the ones which I've shown on another video, which I guess I could show you, as a way to quieten the chattering part of your mind in order to invite the rest of you to express itself, okay, is to do a sort of a quasi hypnotic induction with your fingers. And so what I would suggest to you, and this works best if you have a goal in mind, and the goal should be a towards goal, not a I want less of, I want to run away from goal, but I want a solution to. Okay, so if you're facing a conflict or a conundrum or a challenge, rather than focusing on the challenge, focus upon what it is that you want, what is the outcome, what would be the better solution, and focus on that. Okay, so if I was able to do anything, how would I want to act or think or feel? Okay, and have that as your intention. Okay, you don't need to know how you get there. That's the purpose of going into the kind of creative part of your mind. But you need to have that as a goal in order to kind of guide yourself. Yeah. So with that in mind, and of course this I'm on a video, so let's just, for the sake of safety and clarity and so on, please only do this when it's safe and appropriate to do so, not when driving, not when operating machinery, only when you can safely set aside 15-20 minutes for yourself. You know, maybe you find a quiet room and you close the door, or you tell everybody that's in the vicinity, just please give me 20 minutes on my own. I want to think about something. And then what you can do, so with these two fingers, and I assure you this is just a ceremony, so there are 1,001 ways that you can do this, but I find this one quite useful. So with your two index fingers, if you point your fingers forwards, so away from you, and you want them, so if you're sat down, you want them kind of at belly button height. So, 10 centimeters above your legs. Even if you're stood up, if you kind of keep them sort of belly button height, that's good. And you want them about that far apart. So about maybe 10 centimeters apart. Was that about, I don't know, 4 inches apart, something like that. And so with them there, with them kind of 10, 20 centimeters above your legs if you're sat down, and they're about 10, 15 centimeters apart, and they're kind of just out in front of your belly button, pointing forwards away from you. If you just follow me along, maybe you can already at that point notice that your breathing has calmed down. Maybe you can feel a sense of stillness in your thighs. Maybe there's a sort of a tingling sensation in your ankles or in your feet, maybe your arms, biceps. You can notice because of the fact that you're pointing your fingers forwards. Maybe you can notice the temperature of the air that you're breathing in and the temperature of the air that you're breathing out. Maybe you can notice a sort of a faint pressure building at the tip of those fingertips. And maybe you could imagine extending those two fingertips almost as if you were going to press on a light switch. So there's just a degree of intention there to be aiming those fingertips forwards, but you're not moving them. It's just using your imagination as a way of extending those fingers in the correct way, those first fingers, as if you were going to be putting just sufficient pressure to press on a light switch. But because you're focusing on two fingers at the same time, and they're about sort of 10 or 15 centimeters apart, it's kind of hard to focus on both fingers at the same time. And so what I would encourage you to do is to just kind of place your gaze in between the two fingers and to extend your peripheral vision. So as you expand your peripheral vision, you can see both of those fingertips, and you can see further out to the left and the right. And the more that you expand your peripheral vision, maybe you can even reach the walls or something out at a 90-degree angle on the left and the right. And maybe even with your imagination, you can start to expand your peripheral vision almost behind yourself. You can almost feel the sensations of what is off on an angle behind you, to your left and your right. And the more that you engage in this process, the easier it becomes, and the more you actually realize that your mind is becoming quiet. But as you gaze at the space in between the two fingers, and you can notice that pointing sensation in the tips of each of your fingers, and the more you engage with that process, perhaps the two fingers start to fall in that area of your eyesight where the blind spot is, and so it's slightly more complicated to notice the outline of all of the light and dark and the edge and the periphery of the finger, and if so, that's perfectly okay. And maybe you can even notice the air circulating around those two fingers as they're extending out. But try and get a sense of the two fingertips, of maybe the nail pointing forwards. And when you're ready, when your mind is already calm and quiet, when your body is feeling pretty still, when it's reached the point where those two fingers and the arms and the hands are almost just hovering in space, and they're completely comfortable, and they've been there for quite some time, but it's totally at ease, then I'd like you to focus, instead of on the two fingers and the fingertips and the nail with your peripheral vision, to move your focus forwards an inch or two, 4 or 5 centimeters in front of both of those fingertips. By keeping your gaze kind of in between, in the space between the two, and with your peripheral vision observing that space a few centimeters in front of both fingers. And now I'm just going to go quiet so that you can notice what you notice. And perhaps you can become aware just how still your body has become. Perhaps there are no thoughts at all. And perhaps that feels really good. And if there is a thought that wafts across the front of your mind from time to time, that's okay. You can just let it wander away. It's okay, but it's not really necessary at this moment. And as you focus on that stillness, on that quiet, perhaps you're already aware of a deeper inner wisdom, because a person can tap into their inner wisdom very easily in this state. And so sooner or later, you'll notice a kind of a quieter voice, It might come from your heart, it might come from your stomach, it might come from a part of your body that I couldn't imagine. And whichever that is right and appropriate for you in this moment, knowing that the next moment it could be different. And just recalling that intention. You can invite or request the assistance or just open up to the wisdom of the rest of you. And knowing what you're knowing and feeling what you're feeling. And considering that I said sometimes the tortoise mind thinks slowly. There's no need to expect a response. That perhaps there might be a response in the coming minutes, later in the day, perhaps overnight, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps in a few days' time. And that is all right. Because you always have your thinking mind. It's always there as well. And you're just requesting other ideas, other potential ways of thinking. And when you've made that request, when you've opened up to the possibility of whatever that might be, maybe you want to close your eyes and just settle into this moment of peace. Noticing how still you've become, becoming aware of how quiet your breathing is. Perhaps you might want to allow your hands to drift down to your thighs or down, they're hanging down, totally relaxed. Only as quickly as your inner mind can start to work on that question, on that goal. And there's no need for you to think and remember every thought, because thoughts can bubble up easily at moments that you least expect them. And the more that you practice this, the easier it becomes, the more it feels like you, the more safer and more connected you feel, the more in relation with yourself you feel, and the more at ease with the idea of tapping into your intuition you can become. Because it feels wonderful to find the stillness inside of you. And a person can always find the stillness inside of them when they simply invite it. And so you can notice just how easy it is to reach this state just by recalling those steps of really just choosing to extend your index fingers, those first fingers forwards, almost as if you're pressing on a light switch, an invisible light switch, holding those fingers 10, 15 centimeters apart, focusing upon your body, focusing on the space between those fingers, extending your peripheral vision so that you can see both fingers, allowing that sense of stillness to envelop you. And when you're comfortable with that sense of stillness, just extending your point of focus a few centimeters in front of both fingers at the same time. Knowing that that's a ceremony which can invite you to access the rest of you. And so, having made that request to the rest of you, in your own time, you can take in a good few breaths, you can open your eyes, maybe wipe your eyes, come back up to a state of full present awareness, and notice what you notice. Feel what you feel. Fill your lungs with air. Open your eyes nice and wide and bring yourself back, trusting, in actual fact, that whatever processes need to occur in the background can do so, and that it's all working perfectly for you already. And that idea is now percolating along in the back of your mind. And your only job, really, is to just be aware of what might come up from time to time when you least expect it. And then when it comes up, well, then it's back in your harebrain. Yeah, it's become aware in the critical, conscious, thought-provoking, scientific element of your mind. So at that point, you can then get to town with it and kind of go, okay, so does this make sense? Where did that idea fit in with what it is that I'm trying to achieve? And does it make sense? Is it absolutely absurd? Is there something that I can learn from it? And so what you're doing is you are engaging in a positive feedback loop. So you go to your critical mind, you think things through, you realize that you've reached the limit of thinking. Then you hand it over to the rest of you. You say, I've got as far as I can go. Can you please chew on this? I'll let it go. And then maybe in the middle of the night, something like, oh, that's interesting. Or maybe you're going out for a walk sometime, or you're having a chat with someone and a couple of words that they say tingle. You don't know where it's going to come from. But the point is that you are open to the fact that it might come. That you don't know everything, that the story of the scientific part of your brain is only a small element, and so you're looking for feedback. And then the feedback comes in whatever way it is, and you kind of go, oh, that's a bit strange. So then you can evaluate that with your critical mind. You go down that route. Maybe there's things that you can do or try or think about. And then maybe you reach another point of, well, I'm not sure anymore. Okay, in which case then you go back and you do the process again. And this is the process of creativity versus the scientific mind. If you engage in both of those, it's like you are bringing extra you to the table. You're bringing more potentiality. You're bringing more creativity. You're bringing your inventiveness. And from time to time, maybe nothing seems to come. Okay. Now, if that's the case, there's probably a reason for that too. Maybe there is an imagination that is there kind of saying, well, I don't really want to go there at some point. Who knows? Maybe that's the case. If so, I'd love to hear about that. But ordinarily, if you permit yourself the freedom to do this, which means just simply bringing a sense of curiosity, right? A sense of play. There's no reason for this to be right or wrong. You're just asking, inviting extra points of view, extra thoughts. It can be an illuminating idea, because what you're doing really is the more you do this, the more you realize how little there is going on up here and how much of a massive information superhighway exists if you simply permit it the potential to express itself. One of the ways of defining the intuition, the subconscious, is a voice that is very quiet, and that as soon as you hear it, you have a sort of an instinctive wish to edit. And that tends to be gold dust, because what's going on there is that the conscious part of your mind thinks it rules the roost, that thinks it knows it all, is hearing a voice from another part of you and going, oh, well, that's not really me. And so it's instantly chewing on it in a scientific perspective. Okay, that's fine. There's no harm in doing that, but don't suffocate the voice. Allow the voice to express itself and then think about it. Yeah. So you're friends with these other parts of you. And the more you do it, you may discover that there's not only one subconscious, that there are multiple subconsci, and that they each have different strengths, they each have different weaknesses, they have different goals, they have different fears, but they all have something to contribute. And so the more you do this, the more contribution you're gaining. And so you end up with a state of inner wisdom, a state of expanded awareness, a state of extra security, because it's not as if you've just got your thinking part of your brain anymore. You've got the rest of you. You've got this massive extra weight, extra expanse of creativity that you can bring to bear. Okay. End result, you've got a tool to open up to your intuition, to make requests to your inner wisdom, and to almost divine conclusions that you could not have come to through your conscious thought process. And then you don't accept it, innately. You then consider it. But it's a different point of view. That's the way to make better decisions, because what you're doing is you're taking more potential, you're taking more ideas, and then chewing on which ones feel right or don't. And then getting there. I talk in quite a few of my videos that there are many ways to achieve your goal. It's almost as if the goal is on the other side of the stream, and in the middle of the stream there's a whole series of stones, stepping stones, that you can make your way across. There isn't just one. There are many, many ways that will help you to get across. And so the more you can tap into your intuition, the more you can tap into this quieter part of you, the more stones you're creating, the more opportunities you're creating to walk across the river, get where you want to go. I hope that might be of interest. I hope that's helpful. And if it is, let me know. Yeah, if there are things that you want to play around with, give it a try. This following your fingers can be quite in depth. It can be a very deeply comforting experience. And the more that you practice it, the easier it becomes to lead yourself there, and the easier it becomes then to take a deep breath and open up and basically come back to the full and present now. But in the moment, you're starting to observe what it is to feel like more of you, which can be illuminating. All right, thank you very much for watching. Go check out my other videos. This is a useful one. It's kind of in between. It's using a little bit of something very, very practical, but also specific tools that allow you to become more spiritual, more open-minded, more curious, to get out of your story and to consider the rest of you, which is basically where your potential lies. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye.